was going through a period where I was like changing out, and I thought,
Hey, Nathan.
and I just wanted time for that stuff.
Mr. Volk, are you ready for the interview?
If Miss Rodney is ready, I'm ready.
The October 16, 2023 legislative session of Anne Arundel County Council is called to order. Please ensure all cell phones and electronic devices are set to silent. Mr. Volke will lead us in the invocation.
Good evening. Please stand with me and pray in a manner consistent with your faith as I pray in a manner consistent with mine. Father God, we take a moment as we start this meeting to think about the lives that are being impacted in Israel, in Gaza, and the folks over there who are just absolutely suffering some of the worst atrocities and some of the worst situations that we have here on earth. We just pray that you'll be with them. We pray that you'll be with those in Israel. We pray that you'll be with the Palestinians who are also suffering and who are evacuating. We just pray that you'll be with all of them. God, we pray that tonight as we come before you as this body, that we can make wise and sound decisions. We pray that we can hear from all stakeholders, and we pray that we will listen to one another and be respectful as we do it. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Secretary, please read the ethics statement.
The Ethics Commission has asked that I advise you that under certain circumstances, members of the public may qualify as lobbyists when they testify before the County Council. If so, the law requires that certain information be filed with the Ethics Commission. The chair of the Ethics Commission has asked that those who wish to testify in any form review the general information on lobbying sheet located on the Ethics website under Forms and Publications. If there are any questions about lobbying requirements, please contact the Ethics Commission at 410-222-4413.
We will now open up our invitation to the audience. This is an opportunity to speak briefly on any subject that is not on the printed agenda.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may, a moment of personal privilege.
No, please.
I didn't get my button fast enough. Last week, the Anne Arundel County Police Department suffered an enormous loss with the passing of Corporal Stanford. Mm-hmm. He had a medical emergency and unfortunately did not survive. If you've ever met him, he was an incredible human being. Did a great job in our PAC unit. I can't think of anyone else who was more perfectly suited for that job. He had a very warm smile, a very welcoming presence, just the biggest heart, would always go the extra mile for those members of the community. So if we could just take a moment of silence for Corporal Stanford. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now open our invitation to the audience for anything that's not on a printed agenda. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimonial tool?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the council, there were 3 submissions received. One of those submissions appeared to be someone that was signing up to speak during the invitation of audience. However, that summary has been posted to the website. Everyone here got a copy via email, and it will be added to the record.
Thank you. I see a couple members who have signed up in advance. If you can, please come to the table. Is that Tyson Graves? Tyson Graves? Is that David Bowie? Please come forward. Those were the only ones I had signed up in advance. If there's anyone else who wishes to speak on any subject not on a printed agenda, go ahead and come forward at this time. Mr. Bowie, please, 2 minutes.
Thanks for the opportunity. My name is David Buey. I'm a retired wildlife biologist, Fish and Wildlife Service. And I have a brief comment on the Marley Creek Park development. I have 21 years of experience working to acquire, and restore wetland and forested wetland habitats. While the total acreage of this parkland is approximately 80 acres, that's developable and non-developable. It has an ecological value far beyond its size, as it's one of the largest unfragmented forest remaining in the Glen Burnie area. Since most of the undeveloped land in the county is privately owned, we can only expect that more and more future development is going to occur, and with attendant loss of wetlands, and that will only further enhance the value of this tract as it stands. This tract forms a wooded wildlife corridor following Marley Creek that reaches from Elverton Road in the south to Oakwood Road in the north. And this corridor continues in fragmented fashion through forested private lands to Kinder Park in the south and the wooded tract east of Old Mill High School in the north. Because it is not a completely standalone forest, its impact is enhanced. In the past, undeveloped forest land was never given a commodity value when comparing development cost and benefits. It was often viewed as wasted land or land that needed to be altered. Beginning about 12 years ago, the ecosystem service value processes came into mainstream usage to give value to the indirect utilization of ecosystem services through the positive benefits that ecosystems provide. These benefits are important in today's world. They include carbon sequestration, water filtration, stormwater runoff mitigation, habitat for native flora and fauna, including threatened species and pollinators, and then the aesthetics of woodlands. I do not know what the ESV is for Marley Creek, but I would assume it is significant since it is a functioning mixed forest riparian habitat providing multiple functions which benefit our society at no cost.
Please summarize.
Okay. Well, in an ideal world, I would vote not to develop this, but I know that there are pressures in the county. So I would hope that your final decision is one where you do the least amount of alteration to try to keep this forested wetland intact.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, for those who still wish to speak, please come forward at this time. All right, this will be the final call. I'll start from my right and work my way to the left. So, ma'am, please, name and address for the record in 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Kate Fox. I'm chair of the Legislative Committee for Growth Action Network. Growth Action, and I live in Davidsonville. Growth Action Network urges the council to stop introducing and/or passing text amendments to the land use codes. Often text amendments are for one constituent, but create unintended consequences or loopholes in the code that then have to be further amended with additional legislation. One bill to be heard tonight is to resolve just such problems. GAN understands that OPZ is in the process of rewriting Article 18 of the code. So any text amendments to the zoning code until this rewrite process is concluded will further complicate an already challenging process. We ask you please to consider a future resolution to place a moratorium on text amendments until the rewrite of Article 18 is completed. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Ann Wallop. I am a business owner on Riva Road and have been involved in issues regarding to the parole plan for since probably 2015. And I know that's one of the bill 6423 is up for discussion and this evening. And I just wanted to give a little bit of my perspective with what I've read in terms of the amendments to it, and I would like to give us a couple suggestions just because it's the language in the old plan.
So there's going to be an opportunity.
Should I
bill
wait
number?
till-
Yeah, I would wait for that
So
bill to
wait
come up.
until after that discussion? Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you.
And, ma'am?
On that. Every one of you gets an A+. I'm here tonight to talk about environmental issues with the zoning matters. I've been involved, you've heard about the Ridgely Avenue corridor, and you know all the drama and all the concern because that property has been occupied by people since 1661. Well, and that doesn't count the native folks who were here before that. But it has been occupied, it's been used for multiple purposes, largely agricultural, but other purposes. And, when George T. Melvin developed Melvin's Garden Farms in the 1880s, he divided it, had the surveyor divide it up into approximately 5-acre plots so that people had enough room for their home, their garden, some place to take care of their horses, because that was the 1880s and nobody had cars. And then, you needed a place for food for the animals and so on. Anyway, a lot of us are really concerned about this has been here. This is what it has been, that people had their businesses with their homes and stuff. And now somebody wants to change it or they're assorted people who have other goals and objectives. And I have a lot of concern about uprooting things and totally changing it. Because when you have a garden, there's a song from an off-Broadway show, and it's, plant a radish, you get a radish. Plant a Brussels sprout, you get a Brussels sprout. That's what, so if you bought a home that was in a neighborhood that was residential, and then suddenly, oh, jeepers, we're going to have Brussels sprouts and, whatever. You understand that the song is a metaphor. I'm asking you, please, think about what, is being proposed, and remember the water. I want to incorporate everything the first witness said about the importance of water and, the environment to the survival of humans, not to mention the birdies and the worms and the frogs and things.
Thank you.
And they're important.
Thank you. Y'all, please return to your seats. Invitation to the audience is now closed. Is there any item any council member would like to place on the agenda? Seeing no lights, may I have a motion that the partial reading of any bill, resolution, amendment to a bill, or a resolution or minutes constitutes the reading of the whole?
So moved. Allison Pickard.
Second.
Rodvian, second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Madam Secretary, please read the minutes of October 2nd and 10th, 2023.
Minutes of October 2nd, 2023. The County Council meeting was called to order by Chair Smith at 7 p.m. It was opened with the invocation given by Ms. Pickard and was followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Minutes of Board of Health meeting October 10th, 2023. The County Council was called to order as the Board of Health by Chair Smith at 9 a.m. Also, the minutes of the County Council work session, October 10th, 2023. The County Council work session was called to order by Chair Smith at 10:55 a.m.
All right, may I have a motion to approve the minutes of October 2nd and 10th, 2023?
So moved.
All right, is there a second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Minutes of October 2nd and 10th, 2023 stand approved as read. Madam Secretary, please read the title of bills to be introduced this evening.
Bill number 7923, an ordinance concerning purchasing disposition of county-owned real property. Bill number 8023, an ordinance concerning Anne Arundel County 10-year solid waste management plan 2024 to 2033. Bill number 8123, an ordinance concerning current expense budget, supplementary appropriations, grant special revenue fund, opioid abatement special revenue fund. Bill number 8223, an ordinance concerning personnel, classified service, disability leave. Bill number 8323, an ordinance concerning zoning, requirements for conditional uses, housing for the elderly of moderate means, and workforce housing.
Madam Secretary, please read the title of resolutions to be introduced this evening.
Resolution number 4723, resolution appointing a member to the Anne Arundel County Ethics Commission.
All right, I'm going to ask for a motion to suspend the rules and change the order of the agenda to hear and vote on resolutions number 44, 23, and 46, 23 first this evening. Last time the school system, I don't know if, they were in the corner, graciously sat here to the end, and this is an opportunity to sort of, their resolution right here should be very simple and quick. And so wanted to give them an opportunity to come up here and testify here early, so because there are some other issues that they have to face, as well as we have some staff members, one of the other bills, who has to leave shortly after this, and we want to get them on the road. So can I get a motion to vote 44, 23, and 46 out of order?
Rodvian, so moved.
Okay.
Second.
So second. Thank you. Madam Chair, please call the roll.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The motion to change the order to hear and vote on resolution numbers 4423 and 4623 first this evening has been passed.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, please read the title of resolution number 4423.
Resolution number 4423, resolution supporting the Anne Arundel County Board of Education's fiscal year 2025 public school construction capital improvement program request for submission to the Interagency Commission on School Constructions.
All right. Mr. Hunt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With me at the table is Kyle Roof from Anne Arundel County Public Schools and Lori Klossmeyer from the Office of Law. So we did discuss this resolution at the work session last week. State law requires the Interagency Commission on School Construction to prepare projections of school construction and capital improvement needs for the purpose of allocating state school construction funds to local boards of education. Rules and regulations and procedures of the IAC on school construction also require that each local board of education annually submit to the IAC an updated capital improvement program request for the following fiscal year and the ensuing 5 fiscal years, which is required to be accompanied by written local government support. The county executive supports the County Board of Education's fiscal year 2025 public school construction capital improvement program request for submission to the IAC and refers it to the County Council for confirmation. We ask for your support in this resolution, and we are happy to answer any questions.
Any additional questions from council members? All right, we will now open up the public hearing on resolution 4423. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimonial tool?
We did not receive anything ahead of time, Mr. Chair.
And I don't see anyone that signed up in advance on 4423. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on resolution 4423? All right, seeing no movement, public testimony on resolution 4423 is now closed. Is there any final discussion? I will say that, just as I mentioned at the work session, or maybe it was the previous council meeting, looking forward to working with you all. We're going to internally be reviewing some capital projects for county projects, but I think holistically that should include the school system as well in the future. And so just to try to save some cost measures. But you will be hearing more about that. I'm just beating that dead horse because it is so important for the county to get their fingers wrapped around that problem set. So just FYI. All right. Seeing no lights. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Resolution 4423.
Resolution number 4423, resolution supporting the Anne Arundel County Board of Education's fiscal year 2025 public school construction capital improvement program request for submission to the Interagency Commission on School Construction.
All right. Any final discussion? Seeing no lights, please call the roll.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Resolution number 4423 has been adopted.
And then, Madam Secretary, please read the title of Resolution number 4623.
Resolution number 4623, resolution approving a conditional appropriation of coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds in excess of $500,000 to the Grant Special Revenue Fund.
Mr. Hunt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me at the table, I have Budget Director Chris Trumbauer, Director of the Department of Health, Tony Gedden, as well as Sean Kane and Grace Tidings from the department, and Lori Klossmeyer from the Office of Law. This resolution would approve $2,127,888 for a COVID-19 mitigation project. This request is to mitigate expenses that were found ineligible for FEMA funding in FY21 and FY22. It will utilize this money for local recovery funds. If not passed, this expense would be placed against the county's general fund. And we're happy to answer any questions.
I'm sure we're going to have a couple of questions, but I do want to congratulate Mr. Trumbauer on his endurance run, 100 miles. What was the total amount, Mr. Trumbauer?
Yes, Mr. Chair, it was listed as a 100-mile race. My
Wow.
little tracker showed it was a little bit more than that, but I did go off course at one point, so.
Do you happen to build that?
And
Of course I have my belt buckle
He
on.
earned an amazing belt buckle that, what I understand, might be the county flag here in the future. So we'll see. But we're grateful for your endurance, both in the budget office and on the trail. So
Happy to answer any questions about the resolution at hand.
ma'am, please, over to you.
Oh, we're jumping right in, okay. Thank you all for being here. Just out of curiosity, what about these allocations were ineligible for FEMA funding?
So the grant that these were charged to was specific to vaccines, and so at the time, the instructions were somewhat vague, and this was still the period where vaccines weren't out yet, but that is why they were deemed ineligible, is because the grant was specific to vaccine cost.
Okay, I'm going to have a follow-up question.
Can I add one thing, Madam Councilwoman? Chris Trumbauer, Budget Officer. So the actual lists of the expenses are included in the fiscal note and also in the email that was sent to you on October 4th. But these are all eligible COVID expenses, as I think we would all agree. But at the time, they were applied to this grant. The state went through and with their criteria went and looked at everything, and then it was determined that some of these weren't, they were eligible for COVID spending, but they weren't eligible for that one particular mass vax grant. So this is, to be candid, the exact reason why we held some of our local COVID funding in reserve, because we knew things like this were possible. And so fortunately, in our reserves, we had enough to cover these costs. So essentially, all of these things that got done in fiscal 21 and 22, instead of being paid on the state grant, we're just moving them over to the local, state and local pandemic funding. So that's what this is. And this resolution is to the council to seek legislative concurrence because of the bills from 21. Anything over $500,000 comes to you guys to concur. So that's why we're here.
May I ask a follow-up?
Please.
So just to confirm, and I completely understand why you are where you are and we are here this evening. It's just more of a curiosity when looking at the documents. So the FEMA grant dollars were specific for max vax, and something about these expenditures did not meet that qualification.
I think that's fair.
Yes.
Do we know, if I may,
No, please.
do we know what about these line items were the disqualifiers? Because they seem like they would.
When they were saying specific to vaccine, that would have been personnel giving vaccine, materials specific to delivering the vaccinations, but these materials were rapid test kits, so they put testing and vaccines in two different buckets. So rapid test kits and bills associated from PCR testing, which is the LabCorp cost, are testing and not vaccine specific, the same as the contact tracing staff that are listed in the line here. They are not considered vaccine eligible, and so that's the difference.
Thank you.
What happens since we're realigning the resource on the books, I should say? Is there money freed up from that state resource from those years that's given back to us, or how does that work?
No, the grant's reimbursable.
Yeah, it is reimbursable.
It's a reimbursable grant. So
Oh, okay, got it.
That's
Yeah.
why we're doing this maneuver now, to move those costs over, because we had booked them against the FEMA grant. We're now backfilling them with our local COVID dollars.
Sure. Mr. Voken?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So in the FY21 expenditures, there was nearly $950,000 for the rapid home tests. How many tests did we get for that amount of money?
So the cost of test kits changed throughout FY21. So my best guess is $150,000 to $200,000, just based on what they cost at the time.
Okay. And making sure nobody else's light is on. Did we use all those tests? Are they all
did.
gone?
We did.
Okay. And I see that there were warehouse costs here in FY22, it looks like. What was the warehouse cost in 22?
So the warehouse in '22 was to store things like PPE and rapid test kits. So we had purchased large amounts of it to support healthcare providers and hospitals, as well as the health department, and that's what the warehouse costs associated were.
And do we still have that cost going forward, or is that cost done because we've used up all the materials and we don't need the space
Yeah,
anymore?
We do not have that warehouse cost any longer.
I keep going?
Please, no.
Okay. On the $375,804 that was the testing performed by LabCorp, was that where the county had testing sites and you were operating the test sites but then sending off the swabs to LabCorp?
That is correct.
Okay. And do we know what the costs were per test? Like how many tests did we get performed for that?
Yeah, so it was roughly $100 per individual at the time.
Okay. So 3,700 tests? Am I doing my math right? Probably not. Hold on, I'll pull up a calculator. Yeah, 3,750. Okay. So with those tests, all of those were done just on county residents, or were we not looking at county residency when we were doing the testing?
I could not answer that question.
Okay. Does anybody know if there were any questions about whether you were a county resident or not when you got tested?
We were collecting it, but I couldn't tell you that we were turning individuals away based on their residence. So I would say that it was all county, but I couldn't tell you for sure what percentage or how we went about that.
I think Ms. Fiedler has her light on. I can keep going, but I don't want to cut her off.
Did you have a question you want to ask again?
I mean, Mr. Volke can continue. He may get to
You got
one
a
of my
line of
questions.
questioning?
I don't know whether I'll get there or not. The 772,608 in contact tracing staff, how many folks was that you were employing there?
I do not know the answer to that off the top of my head, but we have that information.
And if we don't reimburse these expenses from the COVID funds that we have, then we would have to pay for these out of the general fund?
Mr. Councilman Chris Trumbauer, Budget Officer. Essentially, we would have to make up those costs within the existing appropriations, and so we would need to either work with the Health Department to reduce expected expenses throughout the course of this year, which I don't think the health officer would be super keen on, or we would need to dip into another funding source such as the CAO contingency fund, which I would tell you as budget officer I would prefer not to do, especially since we haven't even approached the snow season yet. And based on the number of acorns my oak trees are putting out, I think we're finally due for a snowy year.
Is that a thing? Ms. Fiedler. Ms. Fiedler.
Sorry, I was mouthing. I've noticed a lot of acorns as well. Question on the CO2 monitors, 43,732. I would assume that those went into older schools. I don't know exactly what a CO2 monitor does, but I would imagine that was something with the ventilation. Am I off? Okay. Are those still in those schools that they were placed in, and are we funding through Board of Education their maintenance and upkeep, or were those removed from the schools?
So they are still in, and they're in health rooms specifically. So because we were performing COVID-19 testing in health rooms and seeing sick children, making sure that the ventilation in every health room in every school is different. The size is different, so making sure that we're actually getting enough airflow in that room to think that after a reasonable amount of time of a child exiting, you could have someone else come into the room safely is what those monitors were used for, and they are still in existence. I don't know that we've continued any particular upkeep, so once it dies or something happens to the monitor, we would no longer be using it, but they are still in health rooms and working.
Okay, and question about the warehouse space. I would assume that we are no longer leasing that space, is that correct? Okay, thank you.
Mr. Volke?
Thank you.
Actually, I want to go to
You want to go to Ms. Lippert? That's fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a follow-up to Ms. Fiedler's question. That approximately $43,000 in expenses for the school system, it says including CO2 monitors. gives the impression that there's some other items in addition to the CO2 monitors. I'm just curious, do you have a list of specifically what those items are? And are those items that are now being provided by the school system going forward? Were they one-time items outside of the CO2 that you covered?
I'd have to look specifically to our spreadsheet for that. I don't know the answer to it off the top of my head, but the vast majority of that expense are the CO2 monitors, and because the health department operates the health rooms, we carry most of the cost for everything, all the equipment in those rooms. So the
Okay.
school system would not be picking up the cost.
So most likely, all of that 40, I'm sorry, may I?
No, please.
All of that 43,000 is related to expenses for the health rooms.
Correct.
Whether or not CO2 or something else, but it was all health room expense.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Vogt?
Thank you. Have any of these expenses been paid to the providers yet, or are they still waiting to be paid 2+ years later?
They should have been paid.
So how did you pay them with funds that had not been appropriated yet? So like, for instance, the rapid tests, obviously it's been almost 2 years. We got, $5.43 a test or whatever. LabCorp, I'm sure they haven't been holding their bill for 2 years. So what did you use to pay them out of? It seems like we're sort of being asked to backfill something that's already been paid from a prior appropriation. Is that fair or unfair characterization?
Can I ask for Ms. Billy Penley to step in?
Good evening, Billy Penley. This grant was budgeted, appropriated in FY21 funding. So with the grants fund and this type of fund, they're reimbursable. So we have to spend the money up front. Grant fund is fronting the money per se for them. We do the work, we bill them, and then the state reimburses us or FEMA reimburses us. So the vendors have been paid. So there's no outstanding bills here. It's just what the health department submitted to for the FEMA reimbursement. The FEMA auditors have come back and looked and done a fine review and determined that there's unallowable cost.
Can I follow up? Mm-hmm. Okay, I think I understand what you're saying, but I'm just going to ask a question to make sure. So you budgeted this in the FY, probably 22 budget, maybe 21, I don't know which, and you said this is going to be the source of funding is the FEMA grant. But when that became not feasible because FEMA said this was unacceptable, that's why you're now coming back asking for this backfill. Is that fair or is that not right?
They're auditing it after the fact. So the fiscal year is over, the grant has sunset, and they come back and take a look at the books of it.
Okay.
So the money was spent out of the appropriation and reimbursed to us from that. But now they're saying, you owe us money back.
So at the point that you spent the money, you had FEMA money in the budget that you were spending, but now FEMA has come back and said that actually wasn't a good use of the grant, so we are clawing back the money.
Correct. They're
Okay.
saying the costs do not fit the scope of the grant.
Councilman, I might be able to add some clarity.
Sure,
Chris Strum, our budget officer. So the simple way to look at this is we have an invoice from the state for $2,127,000 and change. And so we were able, because we explained to them this process where we had to get legislative concurrence, we were able to get a 30 or 60-day extension. But they're looking for their money, and so we are wanting to appropriate it here, and we hope to do that after you pass this resolution.
So it's the state looking for reimbursement at this point.
That is my understanding. Who did the invoice come from? From the state.
They don't have their own COVID money?
Well, they did, and that's what we billed this against originally.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Any additional lights? Seeing none. We'll now open the public hearing on Resolution 4623. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimonial tool?
We did not receive anything, Mr. Chair.
And I do not see anyone that is signed up. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on Resolution 4623? All right, seeing no movements, public hearing on Resolution 4623 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Resolution 4623.
Resolution number 4623, resolution approving a conditional appropriation of coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds in excess of $500,000 to the Grant Special Revenue Fund.
And because this was introduced fairly recently, we're going to have to make a motion to suspend the rules to vote on this resolution. So can I get a motion to suspend Rule 5-106 to hear and vote on Resolution 4623 this evening? Is there a motion?
Rod.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on the motion to suspend Rule 5-106E to hear and vote on Resolution number 4623 this evening.
Ms. Fiedler.
Point of information before we vote, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
please.
What happens if we don't pass this resolution tonight? And we tell the state, we're not paying you, and we don't pass this resolution tonight. Can you give us that information before we vote on this suspension?
Sorry, Chris Trump, our budget officer. Are you asking about the timing, or are you asking about the ultimate outcome if you were to defeat this?
Do the timing first, and then I'll come back when it's appropriate to the ultimate outcome. But on the timing.
The health department can speak to when the invoice is due with the new timeline, but our general preference is that we know it's due. We've had the public hearing. We've notified you. We'd like to get it off the books. But if you guys have more specifics.
We had a 60-day extension to make sure that we were coming in front of this body and getting things approved appropriately. So I can look, give me a second into my email to figure out exactly when that 60-day extension is up.
Do we have any more meetings between now and when the 60-day extension ends? That's kind of my general question.
November 27th, or roughly right around there, is when this is due.
All right. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Ms. Fiedler.
Nay.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Nay.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Nay.
Ms. Hummer. Mr. Smith.
Aye.
That's 4 in the affirmative, 3 in the negative. The motion to vote on resolution number 4623 this evening has failed because of suspension of the rules takes 5 votes.
All right. So this resolution will be.
So I believe that you might need perhaps Law or Mr. Bennett to weigh in here because under code, under the new law that is now 411-114, from the time that that resolution was delivered, you had 2 days to set up the public hearing, which was accomplished, and then 10 days to hold the public hearing. And we're on day 8, I believe. And so you would need to schedule this to come to vote either Tuesday or Wednesday. And then otherwise, I believe you'd be out of the 10-day time period.
Can the Office of Law weigh in on that? Yeah.
I was just going to say, point of order on that. It says we have to have a public hearing. It doesn't say we have to have a vote. So we've had the public hearing, though we haven't had the vote, which probably doesn't violate the law unless you all see it differently.
Requires a hearing and to act.
To act. Okay, so we do have to vote.
Can the Office?
Could I suggest a motion to reconsider the vote on the motion to suspend the rules?
Well, that would have to come from the party that I think voted against it, right? The reconsideration?
The winning side, that's right. Even though it was a losing. Yes, you're correct. You're exactly right. Can I ask a point of order to you? Can't this resolution be brought back in a different format and just introduced as a regular resolution?
Yes. Yes.
This particular way.
Madam Vice Chair.
I believe it does have to be, this is the system we set up to deal with ARPA fund expenditures. This is the system we created during some bill a long time ago. Yeah, you messed it up. So we have to vote on this tonight.
Okay.
In order to be within our own.
So I'm sorry, I can
Please,
speak to
yes.
this point.
Okay.
So this is a conditional appropriation under the code section. I think it's 411-114. If the conditions aren't met, which is this resolution process, then this would come back as a supplemental appropriation bill for the $2 million. and because then it is a full appropriation, not a conditional appropriation under those specific provisions.
Mr. Chair.
So, please, Mr. Trumbo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris Trumbo, our budget officer. Just to try and lend some perspective, it was bills 111-21 and 112-21 that the council passed that required the notification process for any proposed COVID funding, ARP funding that was above $500,000. So the administration, vis-a-vis me, followed that procedure pretty closely. We notified Ms. Corby. We did so deliberately so that you would have time to schedule this meeting within your regular scheduled meeting, so you didn't have to inconveniently schedule another meeting. Between that time and this time, I don't think we got any questions, but we've got the administration, a whole slew of us up here to answer the questions. We provided the memo that went to our internal funding committee. We provided the fiscal note that detailed the expenses. And I'm just a little unclear on why you would need a delay on this, because the two options here are we use our local COVID funding that we have this much still remaining to these expenses, which are clearly related to the pandemic. If the council does not approve that, our only recourse is to pay the state invoice with existing appropriated funds, which would essentially mean the health department would be in a $2 million and change deficit from what you approved in the budget earlier this year.
Supplemental budgets, that can be just like we do fourth quarter transfers and monthly transfers with the school department. That also is a vehicle. I'm obviously supporting it, so I'm
Sure.
not the one here. But as an alternative, if it doesn't pass, couldn't this also come down as a supplemental budget
Yeah, I think that's what I was
request?
saying, that this is just a process to avoid what you're talking about, the supplemental appropriation process, because it's a conditional appropriation under that section of the code. It could come back. I think the issue now is timing, because
Right.
they have to pay by November 27th. You don't introduce it till November 6th. I think it may be a timing issue, but I defer to the budget office as to what they can or can't do as far as putting that money there. So
We could introduce an appropriation bill, but as Ms. Klausmeier says, then you have to introduce it, advertise it, wait for a public hearing. We're going to get pretty close to that deadline. I'll say again, we followed the procedure that this council set up, or maybe it was the previous council, but it was bills 111 and 112-21. So I'm unclear, why would the council set up this procedure and then not follow it? I mean, I guess what I'm asking for is an up or down vote on this.
Okay.
From my perspective. The administration can speak for it itself, but as the one that authored the memo and put together the information for you guys, I'm just not sure what was lacking that you need more time to consider. But you have a motion on the table, and unless something happens to undo that.
So just a point of order, the 501, are we allowed to still vote on the resolution tonight?
You can reconsider.
But it's a reconsider.
You're going to reconsider the motion to suspend the rules.
But that can't come from me.
Right. Has to come from someone else. Yeah. So what happens if that reconsideration doesn't occur?
Then want to have a hearing within the next 48 hours to take the vote, because you'd be outside the 7 days. So you could then, you wouldn't need to suspend the rules
Check.
to take the vote. So we'd need to schedule something within the next 48 hours.
Could that something be virtual?
I believe that it could be if that's what the council wanted.
Okay. So within 2 days, we could set up a virtual meeting, and then it would just be majority vote?
Correct.
At that point? Okay. All right. Unless someone has a different course of action or there's a reconsideration, I don't. Madam Vice Chair?
I just think it's disappointing to see the council act in this way. This is a waste of all of our time, but we got to do what we got to do
Yeah.
here.
All right. Madam Secretary, please, what is today? Today's Monday, and we have by Wednesday can you, and you can email us later, set up a virtual meeting so that we can consider this piece of legislation virtually.
So it will have to be, and I believe you're going to have to schedule something on Wednesday, the 18th. And
Correct.
then you will have satisfied the 7-day requirement for the resolution.
Does that require me to make a motion as well for us to schedule a virtual meeting?
No, I don't believe that requires a motion.
Okay.
Just if the council agrees, that's what we do. If you wanted to set a time, we could do that because we're going to have to act pretty quickly here to get this set up in time for Wednesday.
Cool beans.
Just a plea to my colleagues to spare our staff the trouble of scheduling 7 people with very full schedules in the next 48 hours. Is this real? I mean, I would just plea that we get this finished tonight.
Yes,
Mr. Chair,
ma'am.
yes. Could we take a brief 5 minutes? A motion, 5 minutes to recess for 5 minutes, please?
Yeah, I guess if that gets us closer to resolving this, I'd rather spend 5 minutes tonight than 2 hours on Wednesday. But I guess we'll take, Madam Secretary, we'll call a slight recess for 5 minutes, and we will reconvene at 7:52. Thank you.
Matt. Oh, gosh.
And other needs, but isn't this met?
We haven't been to the winter yet. We don't know what's going to.
7:52. We are back in session from our short recess. We were taking a small break in anticipation and hopefully to potentially make a motion to reconsider.
Mr.
A
Chair,
motion to reconsider.
I'd like to make a motion to reconsider.
Is there a second?
Rodvian second. Oh, wait, I can't second either, can I?
Actually, I think you can. I think you
Anyone
can
can second. All right, I second.
Any, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on the motion to reconsider the motion to
Suspend the rules.
suspend the rules
Got it.
for 501E. Is that?
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Nay.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
Aye.
6 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. The motion to reconsider the vote on the motion to suspend the rules to vote on resolution number 4623 has passed.
So now that we've suspended the rules, we can now vote on resolution. Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah. That's right. That was just the reconsideration piece of it. I know. Is there a motion? I'm bringing up my.
I move to suspend the rules.
Yeah. And is there a second?
Second.
All right. To hear and vote on Resolution 4623, and that's Rule 5-106E for those who are interested. Seeing any additional lights, Madam Secretary, did you? Okay. Madam Secretary, please call the roll on the motion to suspend the Rule 5-106E to hear and vote on Resolution 4623 this evening.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Nay.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
6 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. The motion to suspend the rules to vote on resolution number 4623 has passed.
So now we can vote on Resolution number 4623. Apparently the Acorns is the success this evening. And Madam Secretary, please read the title of Resolution number 4623.
Resolution number 4623, resolution approving a conditional appropriation of coronavirus state and local fiscal recovery funds in excess of $500,000 to the Grant Special Revenue Fund.
Any additional comments?
I just want to say that I am not happy that the state has is clawing back this money for what I believe are very legitimate expenses that were done for the health and safety of our county, and I think it is awful that they've put the counties in this position. So I will speak against the state position on that, but we've got to do what we have to do because that's what they've done. But it stinks.
Please go. Oh, yes, ma'am.
I just want to add, since I originally voted against the motion to suspend the rules, the frustration is not with folks in the room. Exactly what Ms. Hummer said. It's frustrating, the process and the state clawing back the money 2 years later in one instance. So, thank you.
Please call the roll. Oh.
I was just going to thank my colleagues for reconsidering the vote on the motion to suspend the rules because I think that will save all of us a lot of time. And we really do have some important initiatives that the health department is undertaking, and it would be a shame to lose that funding to something that we have another good funding source to use. So thank you.
I agree. Thank you. Saved us some meetings on Wednesday. And I'll give credit to Mr. Volkey for being consistent. I still love you, brother. Please call the roll.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Nay.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
6 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative. Resolution number 4623 has been adopted.
That was certainly an unanticipated roller coaster. I didn't know that was coming today. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 6423.
Bill number 6423, an ordinance concerning subdivision and development, zoning, boards, commissions, and similar bodies, Parole Town Center Master Plan.
Mr. Barron?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Pete Barron with the administration. I'm joined by Ms. Pompa from Office of Planning and Zoning and Ms. Kenny from the Office of Law. We've now reached the end point on this bill. Today, it needs to be acted on or else it will fail. There's been a lot of discussion, so I'm not going to repeat over and over again what we've discussed at the last 4 or so meetings on this bill, plus a work session. This is a long time coming. I want to thank the stakeholders, but I want to thank especially the team at Office of Planning and Zoning and Ms. Kenny at the Office of Law for the many, many hours of meetings and work that went in. Councilwoman Rodvian was right there with us every step of the way, going through this plan line by line to get it in the shape it's in now. And we will ask for your approval tonight at the appropriate time. Happy to answer any questions.
All right. Is there any discussion? Council members, seeing no lights, we'll now open the public hearing on Bill number 6423. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimonial tools?
We did not receive anything ahead of time, Mr. Chair.
All right, and I see that there was one individual that's, two individuals that signed up, Tiffany Briscoe and Leslie Wallop. Are you Leslie? Yes. Okay. Is there a Tiffany Briscoe present? All right. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on 6423? Please come up at this time. All right. Miss, please state your name and address for the record. You have 2 minutes. Miss Wallop, please go.
Once again, my name's Leslie Wallop, and I am a business owner with a physical therapy business and a building that houses the physical therapy business at the intersection of Riva Road and Admiral Cochran Drive. And as we all know, it is a very difficult area to traverse due to the congestion in the area. So in 2017, ending in 2020, we built a building there, and we've been in litigation over an easement dispute. And I would, just to get to the point, there is a little bit of ambiguity in the language of the parole plan that resulted in this lengthy, very difficult litigation process. And I would request that somebody who is finalizing this plan clearly define some things under this plan, and specifically under a clear definition of the word access, a clear definition of the right-of-way, a clear definition of interparcel interconnectivity as it relates to and from the frontage roads, of which Riva Road is one of them. In summary, basically, the Anne Arundel County court system has defined access as unidirectional, and the parole plan, I believe, would like to resolve traffic issues bidirectionally, not unidirectionally. And as it is not defined at this point in time, there is some ambiguity.
Thank you. Ma'am?
I'm Kate Fox. I live in Davidsonville. I'm chair of the Growth Action Network Legislative Committee. We conditionally, Growth Action Network, support this bill. We're concerned that one of the amendments in the bill could exempt development projects in the town center area from the forest conservation law and stormwater codes. We've had some communication back and forth with the administration about this, and I've sent some emails back and forth on this. We urge the council, though, to pass this bill because it's needed to put controls around the high-density development that's already going in the area. But we ask you please to review with care the language in 17.7.903 in the bill on compliance with other laws and perhaps introduce an amendment to clarify that language, as again as requested in our email communications. We are also concerned about current traffic issues in the town center area. With 3 new high-density developments already in progress, the traffic can only get worse. We urge the council and administration to include money for enhanced transit options and pedestrian flow in the upcoming budget to ease some of the traffic issues and begin to meet multimodal mobility goals in the town center master plan and the recently approved mobility master plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie Johnson, P.O. Box 6634, Annapolis, Maryland. I have a lot of concerns about this bill. It's nice that some other people support it, but I am confused. And among other things, on Housley, there's a map that says Housley Town, darn, can you help me with the word I need? Village. Housley Village? What village is there? It seems to be south of Defense Highway. And so that puts it where Wendy's and Home Depot and a tire store. I mean, that doesn't sound like a village to me. It sounds to me like that's already commercial. But and then you see the real thing is I live on Ridgely Avenue, and then there's the Ridgely Avenue corridor, and in that part, they're trying to put in another village, with a village overlay. And, I just feel that there has been a real problem with, with OPZ communicating with the people who are trying to understand. And, I've done, a fair amount of reading, but there's a lot there and it's confusing. And I would request that in the future, there be more meetings to educate the public who want to know. That is actually, you're invited, come on down, we'll explain these, at not a first grade level, but at a level that, proceeds at a pace that people can understand. When they came into the one meeting we had in our area on February 6th, these people have been batting around these vocabulary words for 3 years. They don't stumble on them. They don't feel that there's any need to explain to other grown-ups what they are. And so they went zip, zip, zip. And we all, the locals, went away saying, did you understand? Did you understand? And the answer is, I don't know what's going on here. And I don't like it.
Thank you. Thank you. You may be seated. Public hearing on bill number 6423 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of bill number 6423.
Bill number 6423, an ordinance concerning subdivision and development, zoning, boards, commissions, and similar bodies, Parole Town Center Master Plan.
All right. See, there's a technical amendment here, but please read amendment number 30.
Amendment number 30, this technical amendment corrects rogue punctuation and other irregularities.
All right, Mr. Barrett?
We are against irregularities. Please pass the amendment.
All right. Any additional comments from the council members about this amendment? Seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on amendment number. Actually, is there a motion to adopt? Is there a second?
Rodman, second.
All right. Any final discussion? Seeing none, now call the roll.
Ms. Fiedler. Aye. Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter. Aye. Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 30 has been adopted.
And since that was a technical amendment, please call the roll on bill number 6423.
Ms. Fiedler. Aye. Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Because it's Miss Rodvian's district and she wants it. Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
At some point, the county should look at like an ombudsman or something like that who can really go around all the communities and talk about legislation and how They can spend all the time at those community associations explaining to members like Ms. Julie Johnson who may be confused on kind of what's happening. So hopefully in the future we can look at that. But aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 6423 has been passed.
Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 6623.
Bill number 6623, an ordinance concerning zoning outdoor lighting on piers.
Ms. Fiedler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill has been discussed at previous meetings and in our work session. It's reaching the end of its lifespan this evening, but I will be offering an amendment at the appropriate time in good faith to give second life to the bill in the future.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With me at the table is Lynn Miller from the Office of Planning and Zoning, Andrew McCara from Inspections and Permits, and Lori Klossmeyer from the Office of Law. I did speak with the sponsor earlier today, and I understand that there are still some things that need to be considered. So,
understood. And since this bill was not amended at the last one, we just the public hearing was already done at the last meeting, and it was not amended at that point. And so this should be a vote-only process for this particular bill. And I believe there is an amendment on this. Is that amendment number 1?
Number 3.
Number 3. Please read, Madam Secretary, please read amendment number 3.
Amendment number 3. This amendment provides that the requirement that outdoor lighting installed on a pier be installed in a certain manner does not apply to a pedestal light fixture.
Ms. Fiedler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So after some time of the bill sitting out for public consumption, I did hear from the marina industry, and we have been going back and forth to strengthen the bill, adding this particular exemption. I understand we need to also include a definition of a pedestal light, which we don't have here. So all of this is to say that sometimes you give your best effort and at the end of the life of the bill, you're not quite there. I don't want to force a vote on the bill as it is this evening because I know I have a co-sponsor and there are issues within our code. Lights have changed in their wattage and what they look like since our code was written. We've updated lighting and lighting pollution regulations in our residential code. I do think we need to reconsider when we're talking about piers and over the water, but would ask for your support of this amendment this evening, and then part 2 to be continued. Motion to adopt.
Is there a second?
Rodman, second.
Mr. Hunt?
we're fine with that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any final discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll on amendment number 3.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 3 has been adopted.
All right.
So, Mr. Bennett can help
yeah,
out here
what's
because this
the-
bill expires on October 20th.
Okay.
Correct.
What Madam Secretary just said. The bill expires on October 20th.
So we'll put it out there, but there's no time to schedule a public hearing or do any
Check.
of the other requirements.
As the sponsor said, to be continued. So, Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 6723.
Bill number 6723, an ordinance concerning pensions, personnel, public ethics, positions in the classified service, positions in the exempt service.
All right, Mr. Hunt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With me at the table is Lori Klossmeyer from the Office of Law. This bill was discussed at the September work session as well as at the previous council meeting. It was held pending a letter from the Pension Oversight Commission. Hopefully you have all received that. It was sent last week advising the Pension Oversight Commission takes no position on this. The public hearing was held at the last meeting and we were just awaiting a vote. So we would ask for you to pass this bill tonight. Thank you.
That is correct. So we previously had a public testimony on this bill. We chose to hold the vote to allow that, and then we have not amended it as well. So the public hearing on this particular bill is not occurring tonight. There will be a vote on the bill to facilitate the the action on it. So, Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 6723.
Bill number 6723, an ordinance concerning pensions, personnel, public ethics, positions in the classified service, positions in the exempt service.
So, is there any discussion from the council? Can I ask one question now? Can I ask the fire chief briefly on this one? Yeah, just briefly, when we do the realignment of these positions, do you know how many positions will be required to ensure that fire engines have 4 personnel on them?
I'm sorry, Trish Wolford, Fire Chief. Could you clarify the question?
Yeah, so as we realign some of the positions within the code, or within our structure, this impacts some of the fire positions. Is that correct?
Correct. It's the upgrade of 9 lieutenants and 3 captains, upgrading from firefighter positions.
Correct. And that's to facilitate the new sort of transition and how they're going to be managed. The fire career folks are going to be managed throughout the fire department, correct? Or
so I'm not quite sure what you're asking for. I think I'm just going to go rogue with an answer. See if that's
please.
So the intent of the upgrade is to put officers in 3 of our stations that do not have supervision.
Correct.
And because of our staffing factor with the 4 platoon cycle, you get 3 lieutenants and 1 captain. That is considered a full contingent of officers.
Correct. And so my final question is when it comes to firefighters in general, for the fire engines, like how many more personnel are required to staff those fire engines to meet the 4 members per fire engine? Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. Through NFPA, National.
Yes.
There we go. Okay, you're looking for the staffing factor per piece. So per piece of apparatus, whether that is a truck, an engine, or a medical transport unit. The staffing factor we're trying to reach is 4 per suppression piece. So that would be truck, engine, or squad. And then we have 2 currently on transport. So holistically, if we were to look at coverage across the entire county, it would take years to get there. It's upwards of 250 positions. So the intent is obviously not that we go right for that, but we grow towards making sure that we can move to that position.
Okay. Nope, that answered my question. Thank you. Mr. Volpe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Less a question, more just because you're here now. Just want to take a moment of
Perfect.
There's a personal moment. I just want to thank you on behalf of the fire department, saying thank you to you for the work that you all did on 220th Street in Pasadena. We just had the fatality over the weekend. I appreciate you reaching out to me and letting me know, but I just want to say thank you to all the work that you all did. And I know that you did everything you could to prevent that, but you guys are doing a good job, so thank you.
We did, and we were also in the community, just making sure everybody feels as comfortable and as safe as possible. So thank you, sir.
Ms. Ledbetter?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chief, this question is also for you. First off, thank you for being here tonight. I know you had to move a few things to make that happen due to schedules being changed here at the council for this particular piece of legislation. Just wanted to say I appreciate you doing that. I know it takes a lot of personal sacrifice to serve, so thank you. I wanted to clarify that with the additional fire positions that are in this piece of legislation, there is no intent that those positions are going to transition any of our volunteer stations over to purely career. Would that be a correct assumption on my part?
That is correct. Anne Arundel County is a combination fire department. I've tried to be very clear that I want to enhance as the community grows, especially in your area, particularly with 2 rivers, the amount of call volume, the amount of sustaining that call volume. The intent is to obviously be able to staff more apparatus. So I would hope that all the stations are going to have additional people. If we're putting in full career staffing, my hope is that we're able to run, 1, if not 2 engines and 2 transport units instead of 1 transport unit. So the intent is never to get rid of anyone. The intent is hopefully that we can add more to it. There is no way that we can continue the manner in which we're serving right now and have the effect we need to have on the community. And I think from prior discussions we've had with everyone on the council, that is our mission, and that is all of our mission. I have to be able to take care of the community in the best way possible. So there's absolutely no intent to get rid of anyone, but I need everyone to rise to the challenge of making it work so that we can serve more of the community in a much quicker manner.
Thank you for answering the question. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Chief, for being here this evening and again for rearranging your schedule.
Absolutely.
I have heard from some members of the department, and it's easy to say that this is a much anticipated bill for passage. Some questions and confusion did arise, I think, because of the delay, but just for record's sake, this is not an emergency bill. So even though a date was anticipated for passage and for it to become law, it is 45 days from the date that the bill passes that it would become effective. Just confirming for the record.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Or I'll let somebody else confirm that.
But thank you again for being here this evening.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you. I didn't mean to spice up your evening, but you answered them perfectly. So, Madam Secretary, please call the roll on Bill number 6723.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
A hearty Fire Department, yes. Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 6723 has been passed.
Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 6923.
Bill number 6923, an ordinance concerning zoning, general provisions, amendments to comprehensive zoning ordinance.
Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me at the table are Christina Pompa from the Office of Planning and Zoning and Kelly Kenny from the Office of Law. So this bill was heard at the prior meeting. It implements a 2018 charter amendment by establishing a process for posting specified outdoor notice signs prior to introduction of an amendment to a comprehensive zoning ordinance that was not requested by application or proposed by the Office of Planning and Zoning, but rather comes through the council. So this is a council process. It was amended at the last the last council meeting rather to provide more notice. So we're here to answer any questions, but we urge you to support this bill.
All right. Any discussion from seeing no lights? We will now open the public hearing on Bill number 6923. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimonial tool?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we've received one submission of testimony. Everyone here received that in an email. It's included in the summary that's posted online, and it will be added to the record.
All right, and I don't see anyone that has signed up in advance. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on 6923? All right. I see 2 members moving. Please remember to state your name and address for the record. Remarks will be limited to 2 minutes. And after this, we will close the public hearing on 6923.
Chair of the Legislative Committee of Growth Action Network. We continue to have reservations about the short time frame for advance notice to the community of any proposed amendments to any comprehensive rezoning legislation. We support an amendment that will be introduced tonight to lengthen the notification to 14 days. We also would like to see an amendment that requires the property owner or their proxy to send written notification to nearby HOAs and property owners within 300 feet of a parcel for which an amendment is being proposed for the comprehensive rezoning bill. This type of notification is required for administrative hearings. It's required for developments and for modifications to the code for developments. Shouldn't property owners be made aware of potential rezoning efforts as well, especially if their property is not on the same street as the property for which a zoning amendment is to be proposed and possibly approved? Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
P.O. Box 6634, Annapolis, Maryland. May I, second, all of your comments from GAN, Growth Action Network. And I guess I have more emphatic feelings about more than 300 feet. I have attended too many hearings involving Herald Harbor where the signs went up, in the cold part of, or the signs went up, and then you have the hearing in the depth of the cold, and the hearing officer says, oh, well, I guess a few squirrels and maybe a deer or two saw the sign, ha, 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 ha. And everybody in the courtroom or in the hearing room laughs because they know darn well he's right, and that the people in the community never got the notice. So consequently, I would ask you all to consider, or reconsider some wording in the legislation that exists to add, except in those, extend the 300 feet. And, I think that's reasonable. And extend the time, because maybe in that, during, when you've got the deer and the squirrels there, well, maybe you get a couple of warm days and somebody walks his dog and gets to see the sign. But I'm really serious about it in that the notice just doesn't work, in many areas. You just, it's not a joke. It's serious. And likewise, the amount of time that the sign should be up, because this is necessary. Due process involves notice. That means you get to see it. And an opportunity to defend or oppose, present your evidence and be heard by a neutral hearing officer. Anyway, thanks so much.
Thank you. Please return to your seats, and thank you for the testimony. Public hearing on Bill number 6923 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 6923.
Bill number 6923, an ordinance concerning zoning general provisions, amendments to comprehensive zoning ordinance.
I see there is an amendment. Please read amendment number 3.
Amendment number 3. This amendment provides that the requirement to post signs and notice on the County Council website of the proposed zoning change must occur at least 14 days before the amendment to the comprehensive zoning ordinance may be considered.
All right, Ms. Fiedler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So at our last meeting, we passed an amendment that allowed for 10 days for the notification to be posted. I heard, and I know Ms. Ledbetter heard from members, and probably other council members heard from members of the public, that 10 business days would be preferable. When discussing how that looks in bill language, it became challenging to put 10 business days. So the only way to cover those days was to have 14 days be the number that we land on to get those 10 business days. And with that, motion to adopt.
Second.
Ledbetter, second.
Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The administration is always in favor of more notice, not less. And I want to thank the sponsor of the amendment. We did have a good conversation earlier today. So I just want to let you know there might be just a little something to consider, is that by requiring 14 days of posting notice, it means it has to be posted, two Mondays before the council meeting, which means the person posting the signs would need to pick the signs up on the Friday before. And so OPZ would need a couple days lead time on that. So it could potentially cause the council to need up to 20 days prior to the hearing for the council member to know that they're sponsoring that amendment. And it could push some zoning amendments towards the end of the process, but I believe Office of Planning and Zoning is confident that they can work with whatever the council decides to do. And I'll turn it over to Christina Pompa for any additional comments.
Christina Pompa with the Office of Planning and Zoning. The big question that we don't know the answer to is how many of these will happen for any given meeting. We're going to need some time before. The way I read this, 14 days prior, they have to have the signs posted either the Saturday or Sunday, because they have to have the sign on the property the entire Monday. So we have to have the sign out the door from OPZ on Friday. We're still going to need a couple days before that to know about it, but because we have to make the signs. But obviously, we're going to work within your time frame because it is your process.
And just so everyone's aware, it is for the comp rezoning legislation that comes around every 10-ish years time frame. So it's not every piece of legislation we do, but the comp rezoning one, it certainly would have to adhere to these requirements.
Yes, and I did look at the 2011 bills Now, the 2011 bill split the county into 3 parts. We're only going to be doing 3 regions at a time. I'm hoping the numbers are going to be correspondingly smaller, but I don't know. You know, I don't have any idea how it's going to go.
I would ask you to check your acorn tree. You should know
Okay,
that.
yes. I'm sorry, I didn't do that.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I wanted to comment, this amendment, Ms. Fiedler and I are co-sponsoring it because as it turns out, we were both on the same track and kind of ended up with the same language, and so it just made sense to do one amendment rather than 2. I did want to talk for a minute to the points that constituents have made, including GAN, about the mailing and the notice and that sort of, that whether it be email or postal mail. I did not include that in this amendment at this time, and I have a lot of respect for the concern that constituents have, the desire to be notified, the desire for that transparency. What kept me from including that in this amendment at this time is being able to have confidence in that process and how that mailing process, who tracks it, what additional time frame pressure that puts on the process, considering we have to also work this into a legislative schedule per our charter. I couldn't get my head all the way there, and without being able to fully wrap my head around the enforceability of that process, it makes me nervous codifying it. And so that's why I landed on the 14 days, knowing actually that it would in all likelihood require us as a council to be able to make decisions a little bit sooner. And I think that in and of itself is going to help with transparency. As a note about transparency in general, I want to compliment the website that Planning and Zoning does have available for the general public to view, where they actually list for each region when the general time frame that they expect this legislation to come before the council. And I think that that'll be a huge tool in the toolbox for community associations to be able to know when to start paying attention, when to start asking their council member pertinent questions. And the fact that also we're going to be posting these amendments on the county council website that's already in the bill, that provision, I think will all hopefully lead to the amount of transparency that folks are looking for. But I just wanted to give that background for why today I'm just looking at changing the days and not addressing the other concerns I've heard from constituents.
Mr. Volke, and then I'll end with
I think Madam Vice Chair was first, in fairness, but I'm happy to go.
Yeah, because I want her to capstone it.
Okay.
Oh.
Got it. So I have a question and a comment. So the question is, how I heard you talk about the challenge that this 14-day limit is going to impose on you versus a 10-day limit, if you will, in terms of that. How onerous do you really think that is?
Christina Pompa with the Office of Planning and Zoning. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't know that it's going to be any different. It's the difference. The 10 days had the signs going up on a Friday, so maybe if we knew by Monday, so signs could be out the door by Thursday and in the ground so that they were ready for Friday. It's just a matter of how we play the days. I mean, the other thing is that you could end up with a piece of property getting posted that you don't end up introducing an amendment for, right? You could be safe and do that. So that is also an option. You know, you don't have to know for sure that you're going to do the amendment.
Okay.
Did you have a second question? I'm sorry.
No, I had a comment, and it's not about you. So this is kind of more of a general comment about this. I'll support this extension, but I think the challenge that I have with some of the asks that are coming from the community about this is the underlying premise is you all on the council can't really be trusted to do what's right for your district, right? We all were elected by our district. Each one of us has heard from different people in our district when we are campaigning. We hear from people in our district when we go to events. We hear from landowners in our district. I'm not discounting the community's input on specific properties when it comes to comp rezoning because I welcome that. I appreciate it. But I just want to make the point that at an overarching level, the sort of premise underlying all of this is that if we, the community, don't hear about it and don't have the ability to come and tell you that we think it's wrong, then at that point, you're going to basically do something that's in the pocket of the developers. And I just want to go on record and tell you, there are plenty of people who've come to me as developers and have asked for things, and I've said absolutely not. It doesn't fit with the character of the community. It's absolutely nuts. I can't believe you would even think that you want that. No, I'm not doing it. I would not entertain something to rezone your property. I wouldn't entertain to put in a bill for that. So I tell you that because it's something that I certainly think the community input in the notice is important, and I love to hear from the community on different things. But I would hope that if we're up here and we're officials of public trust, that there would be some sense from the community that maybe we do have our ear to the ground, and maybe we do have a sense of what is going on in our district, and maybe we do have a sense of what is the appropriate thing for our district, just like Ms. Rodbian's bill that she brought with the town center, where she has gone line by line through a 36-page bill and said, this is what is appropriate for my district. So I'm not trying to discount public input. I hope people aren't hearing that when I'm speaking, but what I am suggesting is that 10 versus 14 days probably isn't going to make or break the difference between me doing the thing that is right for the district that I was elected to represent.
Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This may come as a surprise, but I'd like to concur with my colleague to the right. He sort of stole some of what I wanted to say, so I don't have to say it. But I actually would like to caution this body from extending the days for the exact reasons that the administration and others have mentioned. The legislative cycle is 95 days, and these are very specific bills. So if that 14-day, which then becomes 20 days, passes, we could very well be tying our own hands to support something in our communities. I guess if it passes and it's extended and we learn through this first round of comp rezoning regions that it's not working, because we actually have to set up, the council staff and this body have to set up the actual process of how we bring these amendments to fruition. I hope that this body will entertain the 10-day change back. I don't know how this vote's going to land today, but I just wanted to caution everybody about the legislative process. It does have an end time, and there are not every text amendment before this body is nefarious. Thank you.
All right.
I was first. Okay, I wasn't sure. I'm going to say something that is probably not very popular. Democracy, local government has to be a two-way street. There was probably a time when all of the information that people needed about their local districts, local legislation was printed in the newspaper, and everyone read the newspaper, or enough people read the newspaper that if there was something coming down the pike, people would know about it. But we are not in that day and age anymore. I hope that lots of folks subscribe to our local newspaper because they are doing the best they can on more and more of a shoestring budget every time. But we're also technically we're a part-time council, but I think if I asked my colleagues here if they felt part-time, that would get a hearty laugh. And we have one legislative aide each, so we don't have massive resources. So we rely on the things that we can use, which in this day and age are largely social media and websites. I just was looking to see, what the notice had been about the Parole Town Center, because this has been a point that's brought up more than once. And the first meeting, the first public meeting that I shared on my, on my Twitter and on my Facebook, and I have no doubt was on, different websites on the county, OPZ, and maybe probably in the county executive's newsletter, was in January of 2022. So this has been going on for a very long time. And there has been an enormous amount of work done on that particular bill. And I know that's not the bill we're talking about right now. But, that's a process that's not bound by the legislative timeline. When there's legislation, if folks are concerned about the legislation, that should also be a reminder to the public, put your eyes on the website. Keep an eye on what's coming down the pike. If this is something that's important to you, you've also got to be engaged. Government is effective. It's most effective when the folks who have elected us and put us here regularly stay engaged and involved. and not at the 11th hour. I definitely feel that there's frustration when, we feel like we've done everything we can do, and then we hear things at the 11th hour that somehow we didn't know. But the 11th hour, when we've had over 600 days for a bill, is a little frustrating. So that's like I said, I know I'm probably not going to get any votes for that sentiment, but I actually appreciate, GAN, for example, is regularly engaged. I know you guys watch the websites like Hawks and look for anything that might be out there, and you tell us. But we also have to be mindful of the different pieces of the process. The legislative process is not the same as, the planning process, where someone wants to request a variance or something like that, or they're going to build a new property. There can be a much bigger time frame. The legislative process is laid out the way it is, and for the bills that are going to be coming down for comprehensive zoning, we're bound by however you want to characterize it, with the same 95 days that we get for any other piece of legislation. So here's my advice: if you're interested in what's happening in the zoning, at the comprehensive zoning bills, start paying attention as soon as that legislation comes out, because we'll put it out in, especially the county council website, the county executive's newsletter. I think almost always has, I see it in multiple places. So we need the public to be engaged. We really do. We're more effective when you tell us, and when you tell us, as far ahead and in advance as possible. So I don't know where I'm going to land on this. 10 days, 14 days seems a little tomato to me. Anyway, thank you.
Ms. Fiedler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just some clarification, because I'm getting some messages from the public. This legislation and this amendment to the legislation is dealing with notification of properties that have not gone through the application process that all other properties are in the process of going through for Region 4, and then the following regions that go through comp rezoning. These are properties that, for whatever reason, the owner has not started that process, and a previous council passed a charter amendment that required some kind of notification to the public about those properties that have not gone through the lengthy application process for comp rezoning. Just for my colleagues, I completely understand that this, at least for me, is the breaking point. I could not go beyond 14 days. It would truly create an impossible lift for the timing that we are required to operate under. I don't think that this is impossible. I do believe it's nuanced, and I do acknowledge that it's going to add a little more legwork. So I respect where my colleagues land on this amendment this evening.
Finally, Ms. Ledbetter.
It's a very small comment. Just I wanted to add to what Ms. Rodvian was saying about the varying ways that the county executive, the county government in general, communicates with citizens, and add that I do believe that most, if not all, of the county council members here on the dais regularly communicate with their constituents through whether it's a blog or a newsletter or some sort of official communication that goes out to constituents. I have no doubt that as we begin considering these comprehensive rezoning bills, that this information will likely be mentioned in some of those. So I would encourage people to make sure, like Ms. Rodvian said, that you're communicating and signed up to receive that information.
Okay. Please call the roll.
Ms. Fiedler.
Aye.
Ms. Rodvian.
Nay.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Nay.
Mr. Volke.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
Aye.
5 in the affirmative, 2 in the negative. Amendment number 3 has been adopted.
All right. And bill number, damn it, what bill was that? Oh my God.
69.
6923 will be heard again on November 6th. Yes, November 6th. All right. Madam Secretary, please read bill number 7323. the title of Bill 7323.
Let's try that one more time. Bill number 7323, an ordinance concerning subdivision and development, site development, exemptions, improvements to existing structures, cumulative floor area, and impervious surface.
All right, Ms. Pickert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bill 7323 was heard at our last meeting. We was happy to work with the administration to get the verbiage right with amendment number 1. I do have an amendment as promised tonight. This bill, the bill's purpose, I'll be brief, is to exempt small projects from going through the full site development plan. We are now tonight looking at the mitigation, stormwater management practices that would be associated with these exemptions. So I'll talk about that amendment at the appropriate time, but I hope everyone will support the bill.
All right, Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ethan Hunt for the administration. With me, I have Eric Michelson, our Environmental Policy Director, Raghu Badami from Inspections and Permits, Lynn Miller from the Office of Planning and Zoning, and Kelly Kenny from the Office of Law. I want to thank the sponsor of the bill and of the amendment. We had a good discussion about it, and I think we're in a good place. We appreciate her support on this, and we'll withhold further comments until consideration of the amendment.
All right. Any additional comments from council members? Seeing none, we will now open a public hearing on Bill number 7323. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimonial tool?
We did not receive anything ahead of time, Mr. Chair.
All right, and I see there is one person who did sign up in advance, Tiffany Briscoe. Seeing no movement. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on 7323? All right, the public hearing on Bill number 7323 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 7323.
Bill number 7323, an ordinance concerning subdivision and development, site development, exemptions, improvements to existing structures, cumulative floor area, and impervious surface.
Please read amendment number 2.
Amendment number 2, this amendment provides that the requirement to manage the impervious surface in a certain manner only applies if the increase in impervious surface is between 1,000 and 4,000 square feet and sets forth the order of priority.
Okay, Ms. Pickert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This amendment is in regard to managing the stormwater in regard to the expansion of impervious surface. Motion to adopt.
All right, is there a second? Okay, Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I said before, we worked with the sponsor of the amendment, and we are fully supportive of it and are very comfortable with it. So we would ask you to support, and we are happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right, any comments from council members? Any discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Ms. Fiedler. Aye. Ms. Rodvian.
I'd like to vote aye, but I just want to comment quickly that I have been struggling with this bill, and this really does help me feel more comfortable. So thank you, Councilwoman Pickard, for bringing this amendment. Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter. Aye. Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer. Aye. Mr. Smith.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 2 has been adopted.
All right, Bill number 7323 will be heard again on November 6th. Madam Secretary, please call, or please read the title of Bill number 7523.
Bill number 7523, an ordinance concerning approval of the lease between Anne Arundel County and Gaudenzia, Inc.
All right, Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With me at the table is Christopher Daniels from the Office of Central Services. Lori Klossmeyer is coming up from the Office of Law. We discussed this bill at the work session last week as well. As we discussed, when Anne Arundel County assumed ownership of the Crownsville Hospital property, we inherited a number of tenants that are currently existing on the property. Gaudenzia is one of those tenants. They have property leased at 105 and 107 Circle Drive in Crownsville. They've been there since 2016 and have spent approximately $2.6 million of their own money to renovate the leased property. The tenant is a 175 licensed residential bed behavioral health facility specializing in substance use and mental health treatment. In FY23, they provided service to 3,200 clients. They have 81 employees on site on a 24-hour basis. Both the county and Gaudenzia desire to enter into a long-term lease for the property, which would be 35 years plus two 30-year renewal options at a rate of $1 per year. A tenant is responsible for payment of all utilities that serve the premises, as well as maintenance and repairs of the buildings and property. The tenant's prior lease with the state was for a term of 10 years for the same amount of rent. We're happy to answer any questions and would urge you to adopt this bill tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Volke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. What is the county's ability to terminate this lease?
I'm going to turn that over to Chris Daniels.
Both parties have the right to terminate with 30 days' notice.
Okay, so even though it's a 95-year maximum term lease, if the county, for whatever reason, decided this needed to be changed or you wanted to do something differently, the county has a 30-day option to give notice.
Correct.
Got it. Thank you. Is there anything that prohibits or constrains Gaudenzia's ability to sublet or assign the lease to someone else?
Yes, there is language in the lease that restricts that they would need the county's prior written approval.
Okay. And then with respect to any additional improvements that the lessee would make on the property, in the event that the lessee is a sublessee from Gaudenzia, is there any restriction on the sublessee's ability to make improvements to the property? Would that still be covered where the county has to give approval, just like with the lessee themselves?
I would need to confirm that. Normally in the lease form, there is language in there regarding improvements that the tenants or lessees can make.
Okay. I think that's paragraph 7, I want to say. Lessee improvements. I think that's page 5, top of page 5. Lessee shall be responsible for improvements. Any modifications shall be subject to reasonable approval of lessee. I think that should be lessor, right?
It should be. It should require the county's approval.
Do we need to fix that in the lease?
If it does say lessee, yes, then we need to
all
fix it.
That's top of page 5. Okay. Is there a way to fix that with, like, we're voting to approve the lease tonight. Does that need to be fixed before we approve it, or is that something that you can do after the fact?
Office of Law?
I would defer to the Office of Law on that.
I think that's a technical change to the lease. I think we'd be fine fixing it after the fact.
Okay. Is the insurance requirement in paragraph 10 subject to any inflationary limits, or is that a flat $1 million for now until the next 95 years?
It is a flat rate for now.
Okay.
Yes.
Do we anticipate tying that in any way to some inflationary metric?
We typically don't for insurance, but I
It's a
understand your
95-year
point
lease.
because it's a 99-year or long lease.
Okay, all right. Is that something also that you could do after the fact, or is that something that would have to be in the iteration that we approve?
I think it would be something that have to be in the lease that is approved, but I don't think there would, I mean, there's certainly provisions to modify the lease. So the lease could be modified at some point to include that.
And then I guess it would have to come back in front of the council to approve the modifications, or no?
No, because the term isn't changing.
Gotcha.
It still would be in excess of 3 years.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none. We'll now open a public hearing on bill on number 7523. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimonial tool?
We did not receive anything ahead of time, Mr. Chair.
75, and I don't see anyone that signed up in advance. Anyone in the audience wishes to speak on 7523? Seeing no movement, public hearing on bill 7523 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of bill number 7523.
Bill number 7523, an ordinance concerning approval of the lease between Anne Arundel County and Gaudenzia, Inc.
All right, any final discussion? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Ms. Fiedler. Aye. Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter.
Aye.
Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
Mr. Smith.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Bill number 7523 has been passed.
Okay. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 7623.
Bill number 7623, an ordinance concerning construction and property maintenance codes supplement, building permit exemptions, detached accessory structures.
All right, Mr. Volkey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had an opportunity to discuss this, I believe, at the work session, and I appreciate all of the feedback and the comments. I've had a chance to continue to look into some of the facets of this, particularly with the critical area overlay and what, if any, requirements need to be reiterated for folks to ensure that they understand that if you are in the critical area, obviously this does not absolve you of any obligation to comply with the critical area law. The county cannot do that. Critical area law certainly supersedes county code. So with that, at the appropriate time, I will be holding this bill for this evening. I have spoken with my colleague, Ms. Rodvian, who had some amendments, I think, for this, but I'm hopeful that we're going to continue working to try to get the right amendment that will both respect the concerns that she has about reiterating for property owners critical area requirements, while at the same time not putting additional burdens on inspections and permits. So that is the intent with this bill all the way around, is to help property owners, help inspections and permits, and then also to protect the critical area law. So with that, we certainly will go forward with everything that we have planned tonight, but then at the appropriate time, I will be holding the bill. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank the sponsor. He did work on this bill with our folks in inspections and permits to get it to a good place, and I agree with the sentiment of making sure that folks understand how this interacts with the critical area laws.
All right, well, now, seeing no further discussion, we'll now public hearing on Bill number 7623. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimonial tool?
We did receive one submission, Mr. Chair, members of the council. That came from the Critical Area Commission. That is included in the summary that's posted online and will be added to the record as well.
26. And I see we had one person who had come to testify on 7623. Kate, is it Charbonneau? Charbonneau, okay. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on 7623? All right, we'll close the public hearing after the speaker. And please state your name and address for the record, and in 2 minutes.
Kate Charbonneau, Executive Director of the Critical Area Commission, 1804 West Street, Annapolis, Maryland. I want to thank the Chairman and Councilman Volkey for your comments earlier and the Councilman's consideration of this bill. As noted in our submitted testimony, we do have some concerns about how the bill would interact with property owners and properties within the critical area, and we're happy to work with the county on other options of how that review could be done in an expeditious manner while also complying with critical area requirements. So I'll just leave it at that for right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Public hearing on Bill number 7623 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 7623.
Bill number 7623, an ordinance concerning construction and property maintenance code supplement, building permit exemptions, detached accessory structures.
And Mr. Volkey.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. So at this point, I would make a motion to hold this bill now that public testimony is concluded and bring it back at our November the 6th meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion?
I was hoping to have make a comment before the motion, but.
Oh, would you discussion now, though?
Is that all right?
Yeah.
I really just wanted to thank the sponsor for, taking into consideration the concerns I had about how this would interact with the critical area law. I think just a significant number of people don't realize that their property is in the critical area. So if we're taking away, any permitting requirements, there's no opportunity for, it kind of removes the opportunity for the local government to provide any oversight on making sure that there's compliance and that we're not, going beyond lot coverage limits by adding new structures. So I think we're going to figure out a way to make this, so Mr. Volke, his stated goal of, kind of removing administrative red tape, which I agree with you. Oh, my time is up. Oh, was that? Wow, okay. I didn't know I talked that much. Okay. But so I think we can find a happy medium to allow as many people as possible to go forward with, simple projects like, adding a gazebo that you may have gotten from the Home Depot, or that you printed plans off from the internet, or whatever, that, that are going to work out just fine. But, also make sure that we're not, killing our critical area law with a death by 1,000 cuts by adding 150 feet of impervious surface here, there, and next thing you know, we've made significant, undercutting of the law. So thank you for your consideration.
All right, please call the roll.
I'm so sorry. May I clarify who the motion was?
Well, he made the
Mr.
motion.
Volke and was.
Volke.
Thank you very much. Ms. Fiedler. Aye. Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter. Aye. Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volke.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. The motion to hold the vote on Bill number 7623 has been passed.
Okay, and finally, please read the title of Bill number 7723.
Bill number 7723, an ordinance concerning zoning, residential and industrial districts, conditional and special exception uses, natural wood waste recycling facilities.
Mr. Volke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, we did have the opportunity to discuss this a bit at the work session, so I appreciate the feedback from the administration and from my colleagues on their questions on this bill. As we clarified at that work session, this affects one property in the county. That property happens to be in my district, and having heard some of the concerns both from the administration and from my colleagues, I have an amendment prepared at the appropriate time that makes it clear that this will not allow a proliferation of these types of activities, that one of the conditions will be added to indicate that a facility that is operating in this manner, a natural wood waste recycling facility, needs to be in operation as of the date that this bill passes, which again ensures that whatever opening has been created by this bill is very quickly closed. So with that, I will move the amendment at the appropriate time, and I'll ask for my colleagues' support. Thank you.
Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With me at the table are Lynn Miller from the Office of Planning and Zoning and Lori Klossmeyer from the Office of Law. We did discuss this at the work session on Tuesday and expressed the administration's concern that the bill would circumvent the intent of the special exception use requirements, as well as procedures for public process and approval, as well as expanding special exception use without approval of the administrative hearing officer. And we'll hold our comments on the amendment until the appropriate time.
All right, thank you. Seeing no further lights, we'll now open up the public hearing on on bill number 7723. Madam Secretary, did we receive any testimony through the online testimonial tool?
We did not receive anything ahead of time, Mr. Chair.
I don't see anyone that's signed up in advance. Anyone in the public who wishes to speak on 7723? All right, seeing no movement, public hearing on Bill 7723 is now closed. Madam Secretary, please read the title of Bill number 7723.
Bill number 7723, an ordinance concerning zoning, residential and industrial districts, conditional and special exception uses, natural wood waste recycling facilities.
All right, please read amendment number 1.
Amendment number 1. This amendment adds a conditional use requirement that a natural wood waste recycling facility be operated by an entity that was operating a natural wood waste recycling facility on the effective date of the bill.
Mr. Volk.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll just give the brief tee up again. As I indicated in opening, this is a way to take whatever concerns people have that this opens some sort of a hole or a path for these facilities to proliferate, and it very quickly closes it. So the idea here is this will add a requirement that if you are going to go this route, where we are going to allow natural wood waste recycling facilities to go through conditional use, that one of the conditions is that they need to have been in operation. So unless someone starts a natural wood waste recycling facility between now and the end of the year and tries to take advantage of this, there will not be any more of these. That is my understanding of this. That is the intent with the amendment. So I look forward to hearing feedback, but at the appropriate time, I ask for my colleagues' support.
Is there a motion to adopt? Second.
Ledbetter, second.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The administration does understand that this amendment will narrow the scope to only apply to one property. Generally, we prefer strongly that these changes be done through a comprehensive zoning amendment during the application period, or through an amendment from the council when the comprehensive zoning bill gets introduced, and that they seek an amendment through the council rather than this process. If the council chooses to move forward with the amendment as that was proposed, we would strongly urge you not to view this as precedential for purposes of accepting special exception uses from the code, the administrative hearing officer, and any other public processes.
All right, any comments from council members? All right, please call the roll.
Ms. Fiedler. Aye. Ms. Rodvian.
Aye.
Ms. Ledbetter. Aye. Ms. Pickard.
Aye.
Mr. Volkey.
Aye.
Ms. Hummer.
Aye.
And Mr. Smith.
Aye.
7 in the affirmative, none in the negative. Amendment number 1 has been adopted.
All right, Bill number 7723 will be heard on November 6, 2023. And the final comment or order of business before we adjourn is the county council has been considering over the last probably maybe 5 to 6 weeks a special sort of recognition. And part of that recognition is identifying members of our community who have been extremely value added when it comes to us as council members and in the legislation and/or advocacy that they have championed over the last year. And so there has been discussion on a ceremony here hosted by this body, one to highlight and to signify the caliber of effort that these citizens contribute to us as a whole and to our county, but more importantly for this body to show that it is a significant entity. And so there is a proposal to host an event on November 20th that would take place here in the county council chambers. And the name of that award is the Citizen Legislator Award. It is, and you will all probably see there's what this thing looks like in the coming days, if not certainly the next week. But it is a medallion that's going to be presented to 7 citizens who have earned our respect, certainly, and our attention to say, yes, they have been a value added to us as a body. And this medallion speaks to that. There will only be 7 of these issued in a year at the end of a cycle, for end of a calendar year, essentially. And so please be prepared. But we wanted to bring this up for the council members if there was any concerns or discussion so that the public was aware of it. Please be, I guess, read the website as we start to narrow in on these individuals that we think are worthy of being called a citizen legislator because of their advocacy either on legislation or their advocacy for a community and issues that are in a community that impact all of us. And so if I will make a motion, I guess, to host that event on November 20th here in the council chambers. Primarily that day was picked because literally the between Thanksgiving and Christmas gets a little chaotic. I don't even know if we need a motion, but I'll take it to Madam Vice Chair. But I wanted to open it up for us to discuss if there were any concerns about that date. I know I spoke to each of you, and some of you had sort of conveyed your concerns, but wanted to make that a public sort of consumption when it comes to this specific activity. Mr. Volk.
I don't have any concerns. I'm excited.
All right. Seeing no lights. So stand by for more information. November 20th, we will have a significant event here in the chamber. Please come down and we will publicize who those 7 amazing citizens have been in this council chamber. I see your finger at 6 p.m. It is at 6 p.m. that we're going to recognize these 7, it's at 6 p.m., but these 7 citizen legislators for Anne Arundel County Council and our ability to recognize them in their efforts. So with that said, any additional business to be brought before this body tonight?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. The County Council is adjourned until November 6, 2023.